The afternoon sun beat down hard on the sidewalk. The sound of screeching brakes cut through the silence. A patrol car had parked diagonally, blocking half the street. The door slammed shut. A police officer got out, his uniform impeccable, mirrored sunglasses reflecting the light, firm steps, visible authority. Across the street, a girl of about 12 years old walked alone, headphones on, backpack on her back. Dark hair, calm expression. He walked straight across towards her. "Hey, you. Stop right there." The girl took out an earphone and turned around. Confused. "With me?" "Yes, with you. Stop. Now." She stopped. The policeman got too close. He invaded her space with his body, his shadow, his voice. "What are you doing here alone? Going back home? Coming back from where?" His voice was harsh, cutting. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. The girl looked around. Some people began to slow down, to observe. From school. Which school? Lincoln High. He crossed his arms and tilted his head. His voice rose. "She doesn't look like a student from any school to me. She looks like someone who's been up to no good around here." The girl took a step back. Fear replaced confusion. Across the street, a man stopped walking. He took his cell phone out of his pocket. He pointed the camera. Others did the same. 3, 4, 5 people. All filming. The police officer didn't notice or didn't care. He gripped the girl's arm too tightly. "Come with me. Let's clear this up in the patrol car." "But I didn't do anything." "Let me decide that." Her voice trembled. "I was just going home." He pulled her arm harder. The backpack slipped off her shoulder and hit the ground. The silence in the street shifted. From curiosity to outrage. Someone shouted from afar, "Hey, she's just a child." The police officer turned his head, annoyed. "Get away from me. This is none of your business." But nobody walked away. More cell phones were raised. The girl looked around, searching for help. Her eyes were shining, almost crying, but holding back tears. The police officer grabbed her wrist and dragged her toward the patrol car. His footsteps echoed. Hard, mechanical. She tripped. He didn't wait. On the other side of the corner, a black car stopped slowly. The door opened. A man got off the bus. Tall, broad-shouldered, with calm steps. He didn't run. He didn't scream. He just walked. And the sound of his footsteps was different, heavier, more controlled. The police officer hadn't seen it yet. But the girl saw, and for the first time since it all began, she took a deep breath. His name was engraved on the chest plate. Official Richard Danes. 23 years of career. Community service medals hanging on the police station wall. Photo next to the mayor, another with the governor. He knew every corner of that city. He knew where the young people gathered at night, which alleys were shortcuts, which families caused trouble, and he believed he knew who deserved respect and who didn't. Danes never yelled without reason. He never hit without justification. But he never apologized either. Because, in his mind, authority is not to be questioned. If anyone complained, he would say the same thing. If you haven't done anything wrong, you have nothing to fear. And most people accepted it, because he wore the uniform well. He spoke firmly. He had presence. And presence, he learned early on, was worth more than reason. Danes glanced at the girl in the reflection of the police car. She was standing there, her wrist still gripping his hand, her eyes fixed on the ground. He let out an impatient sigh. "Look at me when I talk to you." She slowly lifted her face. Her eyes were red, but dry. "I didn't do anything wrong. That's what everyone says." He opened the back door of the vehicle and made a brusque gesture. "Come in." The girl hesitated, and in that pause, something changed. She didn't go in. She just stood there staring at him, not out of fear, out of disappointment, as if one expected more from someone who wore that badge. Danes felt something strange rising in his chest, something he didn't immediately recognize. Irritation, or perhaps shame disguised as anger. He took a step forward. "I'm not going to repeat myself. Across the street, the cameras were still filming. An older man shouted, "Officer, she's just a child. Let her go." Danes turned his head, mirrored sunglasses reflecting the crowd. "Do you want to be arrested for obstruction of justice?" No one answered, but nobody put their cell phone down. Danes realized it. He was being recorded from every angle, and for the first time in years, he felt that perhaps he had gone too far. But retreat now. To back down would be to admit error, and he never admitted to making mistakes. He took a deep breath, adjusted his belt, and turned his attention back to the girl. Last chance. Get in or I'll throw you in. Deal's voice was firm, but something in his attitude had changed. He was no longer confident. He was being defensive. The girl looked at him one last time. Then she looked over his shoulder, and she smiled. Very subtly. Almost invisible. Danes frowned. "What are you smiling about?" She didn't answer. She simply pointed with her chin behind him. Danes turned slowly, and he saw a man standing 3 meters away. Tall, calm, eyes fixed on him, gray hair pulled back, dark leather jacket, hands in pockets, and a silence surrounded him that seemed to suck up all the sound from the street. Danes recognized that face. Everyone knew him, but he never imagined he would see him there. At that moment, in that situation, the man said nothing. He just looked, and Danes felt the weight of that gaze as he had never felt it before. Danes swallowed hard, but he didn't let go of the girl's arm. He knew Steven Seagal from movies, news reports, and urban legends told at the police academy. Martial arts master, actor, instructor of federal agents. But that was real life, and here, he was still wearing the badge. Danes raised his chin and adjusted his glasses. "Can I help you with anything?" His voice came out controlled. Professional. Seagal did not respond immediately. He merely tilted his head slightly, as if assessing the situation before acting. Then he said, with an almost indifferent calm, "You can release my daughter." The sound from the street disappeared. Danes felt the ground give way beneath him for a second. He looked at the girl, then at Seagal, then back at the girl again. The resemblance was there, in the eyes, in the shape of the face, in the calm posture even under pressure. He had just dragged Steven Seagal's daughter down the street, in front of 20 people. Everyone's filming. Danes released her wrist, but did not back away, because backing down now would be admitting a mistake, and he never admitted to making mistakes. "I was just doing my duty, sir." The girl was alone, without any visible identification in an area of... She was coming back from school. Seagal's voice was low, firm, unhurried. Each word fell like a stone into the silence. Danes took a deep breath, trying to regain control of the situation. "With all due respect, I couldn't have known that. She refused to cooperate. She's a child. That's exactly why I was trying to protect her." Seagal took a step forward, and the space between them decreased without anyone noticing how. Danes took a half step back, involuntarily. Seagal stopped. He looked straight into his mirrored sunglasses. Protect him by grabbing him by the arm, dragging him to the police car, in front of everyone. The voice was still calm, but now it had weight. Danes felt sweat trickling down the back of his neck. "Sir, I understand your concern, but no, you don't understand." Seagal looked around, at the people filming, at the parked cars, at the girl next to him, rubbing her red wrist. Then he turned his eyes to Danes. "You weren't protecting anyone. You were proving something." Danes opened his mouth to reply, but no sound came out, because he knew, everyone knew. Seagal continued, still in the same tone. "You think the badge gives you the right to intimidate, to judge before asking, to use force when you could use words." Danes clenched his fists. "I was doing my job. No. You were feeding your ego." The sentence cut through the air like a blade. Danes felt his face grow hot. Anger rose, mixed with shame. He took a step forward, tense. "You have no idea what it's like to work on this street every day. Dealing with... I know exactly what it is." Seagal didn't move. He didn't raise his voice, but his presence filled all the space. Danes breathed heavily. His chest rose and fell. He wanted to scream. He wanted to defend himself. He wanted it all to stop being recorded. But there was nothing I could do, because he knew that, at that moment, in front of that man, in front of those cameras, in front of that girl, he had lost. No discussion. The reason. Seagal looked at his daughter and made a subtle gesture with his head. She picked up her backpack from the ground and walked over to him. He placed his hand on her shoulder, protective, firm. Then he looked at Danes again, and he said, almost whispering, "You still have a choice. You can continue defending the mistake, or you can start correcting it." Danes did not respond. He just stood there, feeling the weight of every gaze around him. And for the first time in 23 years of my career, he didn't know what to do. Seagal didn't wait for a reply. He simply turned his back, his hand still on his daughter's shoulder, and began to walk away. Slow steps. Controlled. The girl looked back once, not angrily, but with something worse. Pity. Dane stood still in the middle of the street, his uniform immaculate, his badge gleaming in the sun, but it seemed smaller. The people around began to disperse. Slowly. Still filming. Nobody said anything. But the silence spoke louder than any accusation. Danes took off his mirrored sunglasses and ran a hand over his face. He took a deep breath. He looked at the car, then at the empty street ahead. He could get in the car, drive away, write the report however he wanted. After all, he was still the police officer. He still had the final say. But something prevented him from moving. A strange feeling. Uncomfortable. It wasn't fear. It was shameful. Danes realized he wasn't angry at Seagal. He was angry with himself. Across the street, an older man put away his cell phone, but before leaving, he said loudly, "I know you, Danes. You've been better than this." The phrase echoed. Danes did not respond. He just stood there, alone, feeling the weight of each second. He recalled the time when he joined the police force, early 20s, eyes sparkling, oath on the tip of the tongue, to serve and protect. He believed it, truly, but somewhere between the years, the medals, the accolades, and the routine, he had forgotten what that meant. Danes looked at his own hand, the same hand that had held the girl's wrist. He hadn't hurt her, but it hadn't protected me either. And for the first time, he understood the difference. Across the street, Seagal stopped. It didn't turn. It just stopped. The daughter looked at him, confused. "Okay." Seagal remained silent for a few seconds. Then he said, still with his back turned, "He can still do the right thing." His voice wasn't loud, but Danes listened. Every word. Seagal turned his head slightly, just enough for his profile to become visible. The choice is his, and he kept walking. Danes stood still, watching the silhouettes of the two men walk away. The sun was still beating down brightly, but the heat he felt now wasn't coming from outside. It came from within, burning. He looked around. The cameras had stopped recording, but he knew the images were already somewhere, circulating, being discussed, being judged, and he knew what they were going to say. Police officer abuses authority. He assaults an innocent child. Steven Seagal intervenes. All true, and it's all his fault. Danes put his glasses back on, but didn't get into the car. He just stood there, breathing, trying to decide. He was leaving, just like the man he always was. He could either stay and become the man he could still be. The street was empty now, but her silence weighed more than any crowd, and Danes, for the first time in years, heard it. He really heard it. The sound of one's own conscience, asking him to do what was right, not what was easy. He closed his eyes. He took a deep breath, and when it opened again, he started walking in their direction. Seagal heard the footsteps behind him, not rushed, not threatening, just firm. He stopped. His daughter stopped too. Danes came close, but kept a respectful distance. 3 meters, maybe 4. Enough not to invade, enough to be heard. He took off his glasses again. He put them in his pocket. He looked straight at Seagal. "Sir, The voice failed. Danes took a deep breath and tried again. "I was wrong." Seagal turned slowly, Not in a hurry, not in anger. It just turned. And he looked. Danes continued, his voice firmer now. I shouldn't have done what I did. I shouldn't have held her like that. I shouldn't have taken responsibility. I was wrong. Seagal said nothing. He just looked. He waited. Danes swallowed hard. Each word hurt more than the last. I've worn this badge for 23 years, and at some point, I forgot that it doesn't give me the right to judge before listening. He looked at the girl. She was still rubbing her wrist, but now she was looking at him intently. I'm sorry. Really. The girl did not answer immediately. She just looked at her father. Seagal made a subtle gesture with his head, encouragingly. She looked back at Danes. You hurt me. Her voice was low, but firm. Danes felt his chest tighten. I know, and I'm sorry. You didn't even ask my name. Danes closed his eyes for a second. He breathed. You are right. He opened his eyes again. What's your name? Maya. Maya, I'm sorry. For what I did, for the way I treated you. You didn't deserve that. Maya looked at him for a long moment. Then he nodded, slightly. It wasn't complete forgiveness, but it was a start. Seagal took a step forward. Now the distance between them was smaller, closer. He looked at Danes with a different kind of intensity, not a judgment. Evaluation. Do you know why I stopped? Danes shook his head. Because I saw that you still had a choice. Most people can't. They get stuck in pride, in the fear of admitting it. But you came after me. Seagal crossed his arms, but his posture was open, not defensive. I've trained police officers, federal agents, military personnel, and the first thing I teach isn't technique, it's control. He pointed to his own chest. Control yourself here, because if you don't control what you feel, the badge becomes a weapon, and a weapon in the hands of someone who can't control themselves hurts innocent people. Danes listened to every word. He didn't interrupt. He didn't defend himself. He just listened. Seagal continued. You have experience. You have years of service. But experience without humility becomes arrogance. And blind arrogance. He paused. He looked directly into Dane's eyes. Do you want to be the kind of police officer people respect? Or the kind of police officer people fear? Danes didn't need to think. Respect. So learn to listen before acting, to ask before judging, to protect, without needing to prove anything. Seagal extended his hand. Danes looked at her. He hesitated, not because I doubted, but because he knew what that gesture meant. Acceptance of error, commitment to change. He extended his own hand. The two squeezed. Firm, respectful. Seagal held on for another second. He looked deeply. You have a chance to start over. Not everyone does. Danes nodded. His throat tightened. Thanks. Seagal let go of her hand and placed his hand on Maya's shoulder. Let's go. They started walking. Danes stood there, watching the two walk away. But this time, he didn't feel inferior. He felt something different, relief, and the strange feeling that, for the first time in years, he had done the right thing. Danes returned to the patrol car, but he didn't go in immediately. He stood to the side, hand on the door, looking out at the empty street. The sun was beginning to set. The light was changing tone, less harsh, softer. He took a deep breath. For the first time that day, he felt he could truly breathe. He took the radio off his belt, hesitated. He could call for backup, justify what happened, put together a version of events that would protect him. But why? He knew the truth, and the truth was already recorded. On 20 cell phones, maybe more. There was no point in running away from her. Danes put the radio away, opened the car door, and sat in the driver's seat. But he didn't start the car. He just stood there, hands on the steering wheel, staring at the windshield. In the reflection of the glass, he saw his own face, and he didn't like what he saw. Tired, hardened, distant. When did he become like that? Danes recalled a case from years ago. A boy, no more than 15 years old, standing on the corner, hands in his pockets, a suspicious look in his eyes. Danes had stopped the vehicle, got out, been questioned. The boy hadn't done anything. He was just waiting for the bus. But Danes didn't believe him. He searched him, in front of everyone. He found nothing. But he didn't apologize either. I simply said, "Next time, park in a more visible place." As if it were the boy's fault. Danes closed his eyes. He gripped the steering wheel. How many times had he done that? How many times had I judged before asking a question? How many times had he used the badge as a shield and as a weapon? He realized that the problem was never the street. It was him. Outside, a woman walked by, pushing a baby stroller. She looked at the police car, then at him. Danes awaited the judgmental look, but it didn't come. She just nodded, slightly, like someone who recognizes someone trying. Danes waved back, and he felt something strange in his chest. It wasn't pride. It was something smaller, more fragile. Hope. He started the car but didn't drive off immediately. He picked up his notebook from the panel and opened it to a blank page. He stared at her for a few seconds. Then he wrote, in firm handwriting, "Listen before acting. Ask before judging. Protect without proving." 3 sentences. Simple, but heavy. Danes tore out the page, folded it, and put it in his shirt pocket, very close to the badge, where she could feel it every time she breathed. He looked in the rearview mirror. The street behind him was empty. Seagal and Maya had already left, but their presence was still there. In silence, in the lesson, under the weight of what had happened, Danes placed his hand on the badge. He felt the cold metal against his palm. 23 years carrying that thing around. But only now did he understand what it really meant. It wasn't a right. It was a responsibility. And responsibility demanded more than strength. It demanded character. Danes shifted gears and looked one last time at the place where it all happened. The sidewalk is empty. The sun is setting. The silence is heavy. He couldn't undo what he had done. But she could choose what to do from there. And for the first time in years, he made the right choice. Danes left slowly, without haste, without sirens, just a man driving back home, carrying the weight of a mistake, but also the lightness of a choice. The street was empty, but something had changed in her. It wasn't visible, but it was real, the kind of change that starts small, but it echoes far and wide. Danes drove for 20 minutes without a destination, just driving around the streets I knew by heart. Every corner held a memory, every traffic light, a story. But now, everything seemed different, as if he were seeing it for the first time, or perhaps for the first time with clarity. He stopped at a red light. He looked to the side. A mother held the hand of a little girl. The two were waiting to cross the street. The girl looked at the police car, then at him. Danes nodded. The girl hid her face behind her mother. The lighthouse turned green. Danes followed. But the image remained. He realized it wasn't just that girl. They all were. Everyone who looked at him saw fear before they saw protection. Danes pulled the car into an empty parking lot and turned off the engine. He stood there in silence, hands on the steering wheel. The radio crackled. Something happened on the other side of town. He didn't answer. He could only hear the sound of his own breathing, and for the first time, he paid attention to her. Heavy, irregular, tired, as if it had been carrying something for too long. Danes took the badge off his chest. She held his hand. She looked at him. The metal was worn at the edges. The engraved number was almost erased by time. 23 years. He joined the police force because he wanted to make a difference. I wanted to be the guy people called when they needed someone. The guy who brought peace, not fear. But at some point, he had gotten lost. Between long shifts, tense situations, and quick judgments, he had forgotten why he started. Danes felt something break inside him. Not out of anger, not out of frustration, pure sadness. He placed the badge on the dashboard and looked at it for a few more seconds. Then he picked up his cell phone. He hesitated. I knew what I needed to do, but doing it was different from knowing. He unlocked the screen, went to his contacts, and scrolled until he found the name. Captain Morris, your direct superior, a friend for many years. Danes pressed the number. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Danes, are you all right? The captain's voice was firm, but worried. Danes took a deep breath. Captain, I need to speak with you. In person. Did something happen? Yes, and it wasn't good. There was a pause on the other end. Are you okay? Physically, yes. But I made a mistake. A big mistake. Where are you? In the Oak Street parking lot. Alone. Stay here. I'm leaving. The call dropped. Danes put his cell phone away and looked out the window. The sky was orange now. The sun was almost gone. He knew that what came next would not be easy. Investigation, possible suspension, maybe something worse. But he also knew that hiding it would be worse. Because the mistake didn't disappear just because nobody talked about it. It stayed. It grew. It rotted from the inside. And Danes had already carried too much weight. He took the badge back and held it tightly. And for the first time in a long time, he felt he deserved to carry it again. Not because of what he had done, but because of what he was about to do. To assume, to confront, to start over. Danes closed his eyes and rested his head on the seat. And he waited. Not afraid. With silent courage. The courage of someone who knows they were wrong. But he chose not to run away. The sound of another car approaching echoed in the distance. Danes opened his eyes. The captain had arrived. And with it, the chance to do the right thing, even if it hurt. Captain Morris got out of the car, tall, broad shoulders, impeccable uniform, gray hair cut short. He was in his 50s, but he had the posture of someone who had never stopped training. Morris looked at Danes's car, then at him. I didn't say anything right away. He simply walked to the passenger door, opened it, and sat down. He closed the door carefully. Silence. Danes looked ahead. Morris did too. The two stood there, side by side, without any hurry. After a few seconds, Morris spoke. Account. Danes took a deep breath, and he told everything. The girl, the pulse, the crowd filming, Steven Seagal, the confrontation, the apology, every detail, without omitting anything, without softening anything. When it ended, silence returned. Morris stared straight ahead, arms crossed, jaw clenched. Danes waited, prepared for anything. After a long moment, Morris said, "You know what that means, right? B. Internal investigation. Suspension while they investigate. This will probably become news. And you'll be the example." Danes nodded. "I know." Morris turned his head and looked straight at him. "So why did you call me? You could have stayed quiet. Let it go. No one would have officially reported you. Not with Seagal on the other end." Danes looked back. "Because staying quiet doesn't erase what I've done. It only makes me carry more weight." Morris remained silent, assessing. Then he waved slowly. "You were wrong, Danes. You were very wrong. I know. But you also did something that most people don't do." Danes frowned. "What?" "You took responsibility, right then and there, in front of the people who mattered, and now you're taking responsibility again. To me, to the institution." Morris sighed and ran a hand over his face. "Most people would have lied. Or worse, they would have believed their own lie. You didn't do that." He paused. "And that matters." Danes felt a tightening in his chest. It wasn't relief. It was recognition. Morris continued. "I'm going to have to open an investigation. There's no way around it. But I'll make it clear in the report that you came forward, that you acknowledged the mistake, that you apologized to the victim." He looked intently at Danes. "That doesn't exempt you from the consequences, but it shows character. And character. We can still work on that." Danes nodded, his throat tight. "Thank you, Captain." Morris shook his head. "Don't thank me. You're still going to go through tough times. But at least you'll be going through them on the right side." He opened the door, but before leaving, he turned around again. "Danes, how many years of service do you have?" 23. Morris paused. "I'm 31, and let me tell you something I've learned. A badge doesn't make a hero. It only highlights those who already are." He lightly tapped Danes on the shoulder. "You were a hero today. Not when you used force, but when you had the courage to stop. Danes felt his eyes burning. She didn't cry, but almost. Morris got out of the car, closed the door, bowed his head once, a gesture of respect, and returned to his own vehicle. Danes stood there, watching the captain leave, alone again, but not feeling alone. He looked at the badge on the dashboard. He grabbed it. He held on tight, and for the first time in years, he felt proud. Not because of what he had done, but who was it becoming? Danes started the car, but didn't drive off immediately. He took the folded paper out of his pocket, the page from the notebook. Listen before acting, ask before judging, protect without proving. He read it again and again until you decorate. Then he put it back, close to his heart. It engaged the gear, and he drove home, not like the police officer he always was, but as the man he could still be. The sky was dark now, but inside it, things were beginning to become clearer. 3 days later, the video went viral, not all at once, but in waves. First, a 15-second clip, Danes holding Maya's wrist, with people filming in the background. Then, Seagal's intervention, the confrontation, the heavy silence, and finally, the moment no one expected. Danes is returning, apologizing, extending his hand. In 48 hours, the video had over 2 million views, thousands of comments. Some resigned immediately, others filed a lawsuit. But many were talking about something different. He made a mistake, but he had the courage to come back. How many would do that? It's not about forgiving. It's about acknowledging that he tried to fix things. My son has been stopped like this before. No police officer ever apologized. This one did. The debate has grown. Radio programs discussed it. Podcasts analyzed it. News channels covered it. And at the heart of it all, the question, can a mistake be corrected, or is a mistake forever? Public opinion was divided, but not as expected. Don't confuse guilt with innocence, between punishment and redemption. Maya was interviewed by a local channel. She was sitting calmly next to her father, her hands in her lap. The reporter asked, "How do you feel about what happened?" Maya looked at the camera, then at her father. Seagal nodded slightly, encouragingly. She took a deep breath. I was scared and angry. He hurt me. Break. But he came back. He apologized. Really. And I think that matters. The reporter insisted. Do you think he should be punished? Maya thought for a moment. I think he's already being punished. Everyone saw it. Everyone knows. But if he really changes, then maybe it's worth giving him a chance. Maya's statement made headlines. Steven Seagal's daughter talks about forgiveness and second chances. The interview video received more views than the original. And in the comments, something changed. She's 12 years old and more mature than most of the adults here. I've been a police officer for 15 years. I've made mistakes. None of them were filmed. But I understand him. And I hope he gets better. My son asked me if all police officers are bad. I showed him this video. I said, no, son. But everyone can make mistakes. What matters is what we do afterward. The narrative has changed. It was no longer about destroying Danes. It was about understanding the weight of a public mistake and the value of a difficult choice. At the police station, Danes was suspended for 30 days. No payment required. Psychological counseling is mandatory. He accepted everything, without complaining. On the last day before his suspension, he entered the locker room. I expected silence, judging glances, but as it passed, 3 colleagues stood up. No one said anything. They just nodded. Silent recognition. Danes waved back. He grabbed his things and left. On the street, a woman recognized him. He expected the worst, but she simply said, "Thank you for coming back," and he kept walking. Danes stood there, processing. He was no hero, but he wasn't a villain either. He was human, and for the first time, that seemed sufficient. That night, Danes opened his cell phone. He went to Seagal's profile. He hesitated. Then he typed, simply, "Thank you for teaching me what I had forgotten." He wasn't expecting an answer, but 3 hours later, he received, The lesson only works if you keep practicing. Don't let me down. Danish lion, relay. And she smiled, not a relief. Commitment. He saved the message. He put his cell phone aside, and for the first time in days, he slept peacefully. 6 months later, the street was the same sun, same sidewalk, same flashing traffic light on the corner. But something had changed. Danes was back at work, clean uniform, polished badge, but the look was different, more attentive, more calm. He drove slowly through the neighborhood, observing, not looking for trouble, looking for people. A woman was crossing outside the crosswalk, carrying heavy bags. Dane stopped the car and got out. "Let me help you, ma'am." She hesitated. She looked at him. Then she agreed. "Thank you, officer." He carried the bags to her door, 2 blocks away. She thanked him again. He simply nodded and went back. A small gesture, but it meant everything. Danes realized that serving didn't have to be grand. It needed to be a gift. Further on, he saw a group of teenagers on the corner. Before, he would have stopped, been questioned, been watched. Now, he just parked. He got out. He walked over to them. "Hey everyone, how's it going?" The boys looked on, tense. "Everything's official. Are you expecting someone?" "Just the bus." Danes nodded. "Great. If you need anything at all, just let me know." He went back to the police car. One of the boys called out, "Well, it's official." Danes stopped, turned around. "Thanks for asking." Danes smiled. Slightly. Always. He got into the car and continued patrolling. And for the first time in months, he felt he was doing the right job, the right way. Later, he passed by the same street where it all happened. He stopped the vehicle in the same place. He turned off the engine. He stood there, watching. The memory returned, clear, heavy. Maya's pulse, Seagal's gaze, the silence of the crowd. Danes took a deep breath. It didn't escape the memory. He just left her there, because she was a part of him now. I'm not ashamed. As a lesson, he realized that the mistake doesn't disappear, but it can be transformed. His cell phone vibrated, a message from an unknown number. He opened it. A photo. Maya, smiling, holding a certificate of merit from school. And below, a short message. "She asked me to send it to you. She said you'd like to know." Below, signed, S. Seagal. Danes stared at the photo for a long time. He felt something rising in his chest. He wasn't proud of it. She was proud of it, and gratitude, because she saw something in him that he himself had forgotten. Humanity. Danes typed back, "Congratulations to her, and thank you for everything." He put his cell phone away. He looked at the empty street, and she smiled. Not happiness, peace. That night, he went back home. He hung up his uniform. He took off his badge. She looked at him one more time, and he whispered softly, "Again tomorrow." He placed the badge on the bedside table. Next to it, the folded paper, worn out, read 1,000 times. Listen before acting. Ask before judging. Protect without proving. He lay down. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in years, he slept without carrying any weight. Somewhere on the internet, the video was still circulating, not as a scandal, but as a lesson. In the comments, someone wrote, "It's not about being perfect. It's about having the courage to be better." 1,000 people liked it, and with each like, a small change, invisible, but real. Because every transformation begins small, but it echoes far and wide, and the lesson continues, in each one that he watched, in each one that felt it, in each one that chose to start over. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe and turn on notifications to stay updated on each new video. And don't forget to send this video to someone who needs to hear this kind of story. Leave a like and comment on what you would have done in Steve Seagal's daughter's place. Until the next video.